The suspicious clue is the title, Overcoming Fear. Because the best thing in this StarTalk episode is that it quietly proves almost the opposite. Alex Honnold does not sell fear as a dragon you slay with mindset. He describes it as a systems problem, preparation, repetition, route knowledge, and a very unsentimental relationship to consequences. That matters, because most media around Honnold turns him into either a mutant or a motivational poster. This conversation does something rarer. It treats him as evidence in an argument about what fear is actually for. And the central question is more interesting than StarTalk's packaging makes it sound. Is fear of heights innate, learned, or trainable? The episode's answer is basically yes, all three, but in different proportions depending on whether we're talking about a cliff, a phobia, or Alex Honnold hanging off granite with no rope. My read is that the video is strongest when it narrows that question to one brutal distinction. Fear is not the same thing as risk. Honnold can reduce one without reducing the other. That's the whole moral tension of free soloing, and the episode is smart enough not to blur it. The first half works because Honnold is not playing the hero. When he explains what free soloing actually is and how he prepares for big climbs, the language is almost offensively practical. He keeps dragging the conversation away from romance and back toward logistics, knowing the route, rehearsing moves, expanding comfort zones incrementally, and trying to remove uncertainty before he ever leaves the ground. That is the episode's strongest substantive move. It refuses the fake mystery of courage and replaces it with competence. If you came in expecting transcendence, Honnold gives you spreadsheets and chalk dust. Good. This is where the evidence gets interesting. Honnold's account of fear is persuasive precisely because it sounds narrow. He is not claiming anyone can meditate their way into soloing El Capitan. He is describing exposure with standards. You practice until the unknown shrinks. You build a comfort zone by making the task less chaotic, not by pretending the stakes are low. That distinction is why this episode lands harder than most master your fear content. It's not preaching bravery. It's describing calibration. And calibration is less glamorous, more honest, and much more useful. But there is a weak point, and it's baked into the premise. Honnold is a terrible model for ordinary fear if you use him lazily. Not because he's irrelevant, but because he's extreme in a way that can distort the lesson. The video knows this, to its credit, yet it still flirts with the seductive idea that his relationship to fear can be generalized cleanly. It can't. A person afraid of public speaking, flying, or panic attacks is not just doing a smaller version of free soloing. The mechanisms overlap, sure, but the cost structure, the feedback loops, and the body's error signals are completely different. This is where a lesser episode would become self-help theater. StarTalk mostly avoids that trap by bringing in Heather Berlin at exactly the right moment. Because the amygdala section could have gone off the rails. The brainskin story around Honnold has been turned into tabloid neuroscience for years. The climber with the weird fear center. The man born without the proper brakes. This episode is careful enough to keep that from becoming destiny. When the scan comes up, the useful takeaway is not Alex is biologically different, case closed. It's that brain response is one clue among many, and even then, interpretation matters. Berlin broadens the frame. Fear circuits are ancient. Phobias can be conditioned, and risk tolerance is a moving negotiation between temperament, learning, and context. That's the moment the episode earns trust. It resists the easiest headline in the room. Berlin's segment is the adult supervision. She does the crucial intellectual cleanup by separating pre-programmed fear biases from modern hazards. Why do spiders and heights recruit fear faster than electrical sockets? Because evolution did not have time to workshop your kitchen appliances. That sounds simple, but it rescues the entire discussion from motivational mush. Suddenly, fear is not a personal failure or a badge of authenticity. It's a prediction system with ancient defaults and very modern bugs. And once the episode frames fear that way, Honnold stops being a freak show and becomes a case study in what happens when somebody systematically retrains the system through repetition and competence. My favorite stretch is the one that sounds least cinematic, the discussion of micro-risks and controlled surrender. It's not flashy, but it's the part most likely to help an actual viewer. Berlin and the hosts inch toward a serious claim here. Fear can be renegotiated in small exposures, provided the exposures are meaningful enough to update the brain without overwhelming it. That is a far more responsible message than push past fear. It implies dosage, context, and the possibility that white-knuckling your way through a terror response is not courage, just bad protocol. In a culture that loves dramatic breakthroughs, this episode's sneaky achievement is making gradualism sound respectable instead of pathetic. I do still think the title promises more universality than the episode can defend. Overcoming Fear with Alex Honnold suggests a blueprint. What the conversation actually offers is a toolkit with warning labels. Preparation helps. Exposure helps. Understanding the brain helps. But none of that erases the unflattering fact that some fears are proportionate, some are pathological, and some are useful enough that you should keep them. The episode gestures toward this, especially around overconfidence and underpreparation, but it could have been even sharper about the difference between reducing irrational fear and preserving intelligent caution. Honnold's life depends on that distinction. So does everybody else's, just at less photogenic heights. Presentation only matters here when it changes the substance, and mostly it helps. The structure is smarter than the usual podcast drift. Honnold first, neuroscience second. So the episode begins with a human puzzle and then tests it against mechanism. That sequencing prevents the science from feeling decorative. It also prevents Honnold from being flattened into a mascot for grit. Even the timestamps tell the story of the argument. Free soloing, preparation, fear, overconfidence, brain scan, then Berlin to audit the whole thing. That's not just pacing. It's epistemology. The show knows anecdote has to be cross-examined before it hardens into doctrine. So the late reveal is this. The most valuable idea in the video is almost hidden by its own branding. StarTalk says overcoming fear. What it actually demonstrates is something less marketable and more true. Fear becomes manageable when reality gets more legible. When the route is known, the skill is earned, the uncertainty is reduced, and the brain gets enough clean repetitions to stop treating the situation like an ambush. That is a much better thesis than Be Brave. It is more limited, more humane, and frankly more respectful of people whose fear does not look cinematic. Honnold gives the episode its voltage. Berlin gives it its conscience. And Neil deGrasse Tyson, for once, mostly does the right thing by letting the idea breathe instead of trying to win it. That's why I like this episode so much. It's generous without becoming soft, scientific without pretending the science is settled, and practical without humiliating people who are scared of smaller things than 1,000 feet of blank rock. The conclusion is not fully universal, but it is impressively rigorous for a public-facing conversation built around a man who climbs cliffs without a rope, which is not a sentence that usually ends in restraint. If you want the next case file, I've got one lined up where the evidence sounds noble and the framing gets much stranger the longer you stare at it. Subscribe for that one.